welcome to From Small Things. My name is Sue and I'm a scrap quilter, and today we have CJ with us again. I've been kind of tutoring him on making his very first quilt, and so he has 36 blocks made, and so today we're going to lay them out and see how they all look together, and then we're going to talk about doing some sashing and cornerstones. But first of all, squaring up the blocks too. And so let's jump right in and get started. So we did just a quick layout on the floor. This is we just kind of took them off of his pile and laid them out. And there are a few things that we noticed, right away, which is why you want to lay things out in the beginning, is there are some blocks that are going to need to be moved around a little bit. The ones with the yellow up there should not be that close together. That should probably be further apart down here. And this area down here is dark. It looks really dark to me. So we'll move some things around and make some changes. This is another yellow. Let's see, maybe that one. And so you just kind of have to keep tweaking things. These two here look very similar. Can that go up there somewhere? And then he has two extra blocks here too, which we can play with too and see. So we have a nice balance overall here in the quilt. So we'll just keep playing with these to get them to where we want. And then what I'll do is I will pin them together and mark the rows so that when he takes it home to sew, they're going to stay in the same order and they won't get out of order. So this isn't the final layout. We'll do some more tweaking. But these are the fabric choices that he has for sashing. So I'm thinking like of a 2-inch sashing. So we can kind of do a preliminary and just kind of lay out in here. Let's get that a little bit tighter for 2 inches. So we can kind of preview how that's going to look. It's a really cute fabric with mushrooms on. The scale of the mushrooms might be a little bit big. This one, I don't think there's enough of that. There's not enough of that. I don't even know if there's enough of that. This one might be a good choice. And that one, yeah. So, I kind of just make these like thin strips and kind of put them in between here to see what kind of effect that will give. And then we'll take some pictures with our phones so that you have it for future reference also, and see which one. There might be just a really clear choice too. So those are the ones that I think he has enough of that fabric to do sashing. And then we're going to do a little cornerstone too at each intersection in here. And so that can just be, they can all be different because he has enough fabrics left over from his stash here to make those whatever color he wants, that everything will blend in. So we're going to take some pictures and move things around a little bit, and then we're going to make sure that they're all in the order that he wants them, and then we're going to square up all the blocks before we make our final decision on our sashing. arranged the blocks on the floor, so this is the layout that we're going to go with. So now in order to keep things straight and organized for when he takes these home, I have my official system of torn papers that I just write numbers on. So that helps me keep everything in line. I always pin it at the upper left corner of each block. So this simply says number 1 for row number 1 and row number 2. And I also, just for me too, I always put my pin facing up so I know that this is oriented, you know, in the right direction here. So we have 6 rows. So I just go down and pin them here. And then I will gather them up so they will stay in the correct order. Number 5, it's always in the upper left. And as long as you don't drop them all, they should be okay. And then I'll work my way across and always keep this one on top. And then the next one on top. On the top. And all the way across. And then I will get a little clip and just clip these together so that even if they do fall, they'll be okay. You could also use a safety pin also, but now they'll stay in this order. Okay, so I showed him how to square up his blocks here, and I have a Creative Grids ruler, which is my preferred ruler. I really like this one for squaring up. And 2 things you're going to look for. These blocks will finish at 9 inches, but right now they should measure 9.5. So I'm going to look for my 9.5 inch mark here, and I'm going to look for my 9.5 inch mark down here, and I'm going to look for my 9.5 inch mark on this side, and I'm also paying attention to my diagonal line. So I'm going to lay my 9.5 inch up in this corner and follow it straight down and follow the line straight across to 9.5 inches. And then I'm going to look to make sure this diagonal lands right in this corner, and it's going to land right in this corner too. And this block is just about perfect. There's not much to trim. There's nothing to trim, actually. This is really good. So if there was any fabric sticking out over the sides, then you would take your cutter on these 2 sides here and trim it up. And if it needed the other 2 sides, then you would flip the block around and do those. But you just want to make sure all of your points here are good so that you have a nice square block. And if there is anything to trim, it's usually really little pieces like this. So there's usually not much left over at all. So the next step then, because these look so good, is our sashing. We're ready to start cutting some sashing. We chose which one looked best that we're all happy with. So we're going to cut the sashing at 2.5 inches, which will finish then at 2 inches. And it's going to have a cornerstone at each intersection. And so I just did the math to figure out how many pieces of sashing we need to cut, and I believe it's 84 pieces altogether. So we're going to get one started and cut for him and sew it on and see how it looks, okay? we have our sashing strip here, and I'm going to pin at this end, line it up with that edge and pin at this end here. If you want to pin in the center too, it's not a bad idea for a beginner, because when it feeds through the machine, sometimes whichever fabric is on the bottom can sort of shift a little bit. It's been known to happen that it just sort of wobbles a little bit. So if you want to pin in the middle here too to keep everything lined up, I think that's a good idea. And I usually sew from the top like this with this on the top, but I think for a beginner it's probably better to sew from the other side, and that's why I kept my pins away from the edge here, because I don't want, see, because now you can't see where the tip is, and I don't want the needle to run over them. And the reason I think it's better as a beginner to sew from this side, and actually for any quilter, is because of these seams here. If you are feeding with these on the bottom, these a lot of times have a tendency to flip and get caught up. And now you have a seam that's caught in over here that's going this way, and then you would have the opposite end that would be caught and going that way. So that means this seam is then going to be twisted. So if you sew with this on the top, you can make sure that this seam stays going in the right direction, and this one, because one of these is going to feed into the machine and one is going to feed like the opposite direction. So
what about the pins?
That's why I kept them far away. You have a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here, and these pins are not going to get run over by the machine. So if you want to give that one a try and sew that, is your stitch length set?
Yes, it is.
Good. How's the machine been working for you?
Fine, no issues at all. Except that I do it slow.
That's okay,
And
slow's
Pam
good.
makes fun of me. But I speed it up. Now we're rolling.
No pressure.
Still too slow.
You know, this one, when you feed it in, yeah, keep your finger on it until it goes under smoothly so it doesn't flip. Okay, first one on. Good job.
Take the pins out.
Yeah, take the pins out. And now we just have to cut about 80 some more. And then you're ready to go. And then you're going to put some cornerstones into with your leftover fabrics, and those will be cut at 2.5 inches, since that is what your sashing is cut at. And you're good to go. You have a week of sewing ahead of you. We'll see if you can keep all of these blocks in order and get all your sashings
So
put on.
quarters will be 2.5.
2.5 will
Squares.
finish at 2 inches,
And
yes.
then you plug that onto the end of one of the
The
pins.
sashing strips, yes,
And
yes.
then
And before you add your other sashing strip on your other side, make sure this is pressed first.
okay.
And you're going to press towards the sashing. And when you put your other sashing on then too, you're going to press towards the sashing. So your cornerstone also is going to be a darker color, so when you press that towards the sashing too, because that way all of your seams will nest in the end. They're all going to kind of lock together. So just remember, to the sashing. You can see on the back here.
Okay.
Press it to the sashing and everything will work out fine. So today's lesson was all about squaring up your blocks, getting the layout that you want, making sashing strips, and starting to sew those on. So we already went and cut all of our sashing strips. So CJ is ready to do a lot of sewing this week, and he has some fabric here that is left over from making the blocks. And he has some fabric at home yet too that he can use for the cornerstones. So we're all set to start really getting things pulled together and looking like a quilt top. And he's going to tell you about what's hanging behind me today on the door.
Oh, just lots of extra blocks that we had, and Pam told me to put them together in that kind of pattern. So we'll put it on the back of the quilt when there's the back of the quilt to put it on.
That'll be our next video, or one of the next videos then, when we discuss what to do with the back of the quilt. But it's a good practice to use up what you've put on the front. If you're like CJ is probably not going to make another quilt really soon, so he's probably not going to start his own stash. So it's a good idea to use what he has now and put it on the back. So thanks everybody for joining us, and I'll see you next video. Happy quilting!